Thank you, Mr Speaker, for granting this urgent question. Just 5 days ago, the Chancellor gave another speech about growth, designed to divert attention away from the total lack of growth caused by Labour's high taxes and anti-business approach. The Chancellor specifically praised AstraZeneca. She knew the last Conservative government had successfully negotiated a deal for Britain's biggest public company to invest £450 million into Britain's economy. Under the Conservative deal, Mr Speaker, AstraZeneca would have expanded their flu vaccine factory on Merseyside, creating new jobs, improving the UK's pandemic preparedness and sending a clear message to the world that Britain's life sciences sector is open for business. But, Mr Speaker, instead, Labour have cut the funding we agreed and imposed a national insurance jobs tax. This has destroyed the business case for expanding the factory, and the deal is now off. So can the Minister explain why the Science Secretary failed to stand up to the Chancellor when she cut his funding, destroying the deal and handing high-quality jobs and investment to our competitors? Mr Speaker, in the last 12 months, AstraZeneca have committed to investing over £1 billion in Singapore, nearly £3 billion in the US and over £450 million in Canada. They could have invested £450 million in our country too. So what is the government doing now to bring back the jobs and investment they've just turned away? Mr Speaker, by last July, all that was required was Labour to confirm they would proceed with our deal. AstraZeneca wrote to the Chancellor and the Science Secretary on the 9th of July, but received no reply. They wrote to the Business Secretary in early July too, but he fobbed them off. The company didn't receive their answer until last October. By then it was too late to deliver this project, and now the deal is dead. So will the Minister and the Science Secretary write to the Chair of the Science Select Committee, offering to appear before her and her committee to explain what went wrong and how this failure can be avoided in the future? Mr Speaker, delivering this deal secured by the Conservatives was a big test of Labour's economic credibility, and they have failed. In the same week they talked about growth, they botched a deal that was vital to our economy. Labour promised growth but delivered failure and let Britain down again.
Minister. What utter nonsense. We endured 14 years of growth which even his own backbenchers used to describe as anaemic and feeble. Average growth under Tory governments, 1.2%. Average growth under Labour governments, 2.4%. You are far more likely to secure growth in the British economy under a Labour government. And he simply didn't listen to what I had to say. They sat on this so-called deal with AstraZeneca for 4 years. The process started in 2020. And it's quite interesting what was actually announced to the House and what was actually announced in the paperwork. In the House, the then Chancellor said that AstraZeneca had announced plans to invest to fund the building of a manufacturing hub in Speke in Liverpool. He didn't make any mention in this chamber, Mr Speaker, of the money that was needed from his department to be able to pay for it. But in the paperwork that attended it, it said AstraZeneca's investment decision is contingent upon mutual agreement with the UK government and third parties and successful completion of regulatory processes. And this was absolutely typical of the previous government. They thought that when they'd announced something that it had come to pass. But actually what you have to do is due diligence to make sure that you're securing for the British taxpayer the best possible financial advantage. And what we've seen quite clearly is that what happened last year was that the original intention from AstraZeneca was to deliver £150 million worth of R&D. They then decided to cut that to something like £90 million worth of R&D. That was their decision based on their own investment decisions. And we, of course, as government, had to assess whether £90 million from the UK, as supposedly promised by the previous Chancellor, was the right amount of money to put into the pot, or whether it was better to offer something slightly less. Unfortunately, at the end of that process, AstraZeneca decided that they weren't going to proceed.
Losing £450 million of investment on Merseyside and into the wider North West area equate with the Chancellor's stated priority of economic growth.
Minister. Well, she puts it in a particular way, but it's not a way that is consonant with the facts. The fact is that this hadn't been signed, it hadn't been got over the line by the previous government. As I said previously, quite often what the previous government did was they would announce things and not actually deliver in the end. The Chancellor made it very, very clear in the documents that accompanied the budget in 2024, in spring 2024, that all of this was contingent, his words, not my word, contingent upon due diligence. The government then hadn't yet done the due diligence.